Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm joined with my best friend for this video. This is Yana. Do you want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Yana. I enjoy reading, but I don't read that much, and most of my recommendations actually come from Olivia.
Yay!
Yay.
And today we're here to do a book swap video. This idea was totally stolen from Emma by Drinking by My Shelf, so I'll leave a link to her videos down below where she's done the same thing, and we're essentially doing the same. I've chosen a book for Yana to read that she's not read before, and Yana's chosen a book for me, and we're going to read them separately, each individually, vlog our experiences, and then watch our reactions to the books together and discuss. So I'm going to start by the book that I've chosen for Yana, and I've chosen For Real by Alexis Hall, which is a BDSM age gap romance, and this is the first time Yana's hearing what it's about. And it follows these two characters who have a romance. One of them is significantly younger than the other. It's very British, it's written very, very well, it's very romantic, and it's also very, very steamy. Like, very steamy. This is probably the steamiest the romance gets. I've actually never recommended this book to someone before because I don't usually recommend people BDSM romance as this first thing to read. But Yana does read adult romances, for example Get a Life, Chloe Brown series, so I think she can like this one. And it's also my favourite new adult romance, so I hope you like it too. Here you go.
Thank you. I like the cover. Okay, so my book is called Child 44. It is set in communist Russia, like 1940s-ish. It's basically about a detective who has to go through, like his morals versus the way that the regime forces him to be. So he has to deal with all of that, and the whole story is about him investigating some murders, and yeah, that's about it.
And why did you choose this book for me?
I chose this book for you because it's actually the book that made me like reading, because I hated reading as a child. My mom forced me to read a lot and I didn't like it. So then as the moment I stopped reading, or my mom stopped making me read, I stopped reading. And then this is a book that I found and I thought sounded interesting, and I read it and I really liked it, and because of that I continued reading. So yeah, it started my reading, and I also just like the book.
That's a good reason.
Here you go.
Thank you. So we'll be back probably a few weeks later once we've both read these books to react. So we have both read the books and we are here to react to our vlog videos.
Let's do yours first, so then I can gauge how bad mine are.
Okay, yours are not going to be bad. So, good morning. I have read a quarter of the way through Child 44 and I'm here to share my first thoughts. Now, this book is just such a throwback because it's a historical fiction thriller, and I was a bit nervous about reading a thriller because, as Yana said, that's not my reading preference. It's outside of my reading comfort zone. I don't know if you actually said that. You didn't say that. Yeah. But maybe because it's historical fiction thriller, the historical fiction side is making me enjoy it, and I'm quite liking this book. So what I want to say is that it's a throwback in the sense that this is set during the Stalinist period in Russia, and I remember studying this in history class, and history class is something that I shared with Yana, so it's just like, you know, it just reminded me of those history classes in IB, even though, you know, history was the hardest exam, arguably the hardest exam I've ever had to write for the IB. It was still a really good time, and I really enjoyed studying history and learning about all of this history and all of these histories from different countries in the world. I was just impressed by how much I liked this book. The beginning of it was a bit weird because it goes back into the past, and a scene happens in the past, and we still don't know how that prologue-y kind of scene that happened in the past relates to what is happening now, and I think it's going to be a while before we know that, so I'm trying to remember that that scene happened while also not holding it in high regard and focusing on the story that we get now. And as for the story we get now, I can just see that there's going to be a lot of character development in this one, and as character development is something I really love to see in my books, I think I'm going to really like it. Already Leo, who is our main character, who starts off really believing in this regime that is running it and believing that everything that Stalin is putting forth is right, he's already had quite a significant amount of development into, are these ideals that I'm holding up really good? Is what I'm doing the right thing? Am I suspicious of some of my co-workers? And he's definitely trying to reflect on everything that he's learned, and it's creating a lot of tension in both his character development and also in the events of the book that are happening. There's a lot of loyalties being tested here, and I didn't expect to really like seeing loyalties be tested. Not only Leo, but like Leo and his wife, Leo and his family, the people around him, his co-workers, everything is being tested right now. And that's how it was back in that historical period. Everybody's relationships were tested under this regime, and it's showing that quite well here. I'm just still not sure where this story is going to go. I thought it was going to go in one direction with the way that the plot was working, and then it didn't move along that plot-driven focus path. Instead, it decided to go along this character-driven path. So I'm not sure how this is all going to come together yet, but I'm interested.
That's nice, because I was like, I don't know if this book is going to be too predictable for you. Turns out not that much. Maybe this part. Just this part. At least somewhere you could have predicted. Okay?
That's true.
I think it's interesting me hearing you say you didn't know where it was going to go. Because there's the start that is like, how is that related? There's the title, and then there is what has happened in the first part. And I think it's fun to, like, I kind of recognize the same thing that I was feeling when I was first reading the book. I was like, how they're related, how is the child related, or why?
Yeah, I pretty much go along exactly what you said, like, how does the prologue relate, how does the title, and then
Exactly.
I did the exact same thing. I'm listening to this partially on audiobook, reading it partially physically, and I think listening to an audiobook is helping me, and maybe that's a good way for me to read the thriller genre. Either which way, this was a very good start, and I'll be back once I've read to halfway. Okay, so I'm now halfway through Child 44, and I am really enjoying this. I feel like I'm going to have a lot less to say because I don't want to give anything away, but I think now we're really getting into the thick of it and we can start to see how everything is going to come together.
Already?
I understood at that point. I can see how the prologue is going to fit into this book and the actual direction that the book should take. It's taken a while to get here because what I think this thriller does well is that it doesn't only focus on plot. It took the beginning to really focus on a character and give us some character development, which is now weaving into the plot story, and I like how it's combining those two things. I think maybe thrillers that I read previously really focused on plot, and now seeing how it's working with plot and character simultaneously is just so good to me. I really like Leo's wife. I didn't know her name yet. I was like, what's her name?
Raisa or something like that.
I think Leo's wife is my favourite character. She has got sass, she is intelligent, she is smart.
Right? I love the wife. It's so adorable. It's so sad, but so adorable.
Sad?
At a certain point.
Okay, yeah.
It was sad, and I was like, oh no. And then I was like, it's okay. But I still really like her.
Yeah, she was really good. She's aware of the way that she plays her cards, and she also is a survivor, and I really like that about her.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. I like the fact that she's out there to survive, but she still kind of sticks to her own things.
Yeah, she sticks to her morals even though she's trying to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. She's really out there to survive in this regime, and I admire that, and she's definitely my favourite character. Leo is... You can like him and you can dislike him, but either which way he seems very realistic for what he's going through at the moment, and it's just interesting to see the dynamic between those two characters. And because this is a thriller, I don't think there's much more that I can say, but one other thing that I want to say is that this one is really showing how living under the Stalinist rule and the Stalinist regime was just truly horrible, and it's really highlighting some of the key horrors that people experienced and some of the key suffering that people went through just because of that dictator and the way the society was underneath that dictator. And I admire how this book has the time to really show and focus on that while also giving us a plot, while also giving us character development. I think that's very well balanced. So Yana, you've got good taste in books.
Thank you.
And I'm curious to see about the second half. I actually want to keep reading. Is this what it's like enjoying thrillers?
I like how my fear was like, she's gonna find it boring, she's not gonna like it, she doesn't read thrillers, what if she hates the character when it's too predictable? There's you just liking it. I was like,
Yeah.
What?
It was a good book. Read 3/4 of the way through Child 44. It's the next day since my last update. This book is so suspenseful that I can't put it down right now. Because of the historical setting, there's just so much that can go wrong, and it just makes me want to keep reading and keep turning the pages. I was flipping between the audiobook and the physical copy, but now I'm just sticking to the audiobook because it's just doing such a good job. It's got all of the accents.
I remember the accents.
It's just a really good read at 2x speed, and I'm listening to it on Script, so if you want some free days trial of Script, click the link down below. You get some free days, I get some free days, everybody wins in that situation. I'll just casual promo the video. I also don't read that many books about married couples or that future married couple because I read a lot of young adult, and I feel like a lot of the time in young adult the romance is getting together or not previously established. It establishes itself during the book. And then in adult fiction, when I do read adult fiction, it's either fantasy where romance happens along the way, or it's just like a romance book that's adult, so the romance gets established rather than, hey, this is a married couple. And I didn't expect to ship a married couple, but here we are. This doesn't have like heavy, it's not heavy on the romance whatsoever, okay? The romance is like the backseat of the backseat, and yet I really like this couple together, or I want them to succeed together, because there are complications, as there are a lot when you get married couples in fiction.
I agree with the couple part. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what they did to them. But they're like, maybe it's because you barely get any like romance part of them, or like you just get them with their interactions. But like, their interactions are so cute. You start to ship them based on like the littlest things, which makes it just so adorable.
I know, right? And it was like, I was like trying to focus on the plot and everything, but I was just like, I just shipped them so much. I was like reading romance, didn't really care about anything else for a little bit. Then I was like, okay, actually, the plot matters.
I feel like maybe that's the point of the book a little bit, because I think for the first maybe like quarter, how you were saying, you're kind of like lost on what's happening. The next quarter, so like till halfway, you kind of, the story gets established on what is going to happen, and then the next, till the third quarter, it's more about their life together, like their romance, and then there's the final. So I think maybe it's done on purpose, because at some point you kind of understand where it's going to go, and then there's like a hit at the end.
Yeah, I feel like reading it in quarters was so interesting because each quarter is definitely a thing. Like, it's almost like you organized it in the quarters, which is really interesting.
It's almost like you predicted how he wrote it by accident.
Also, kudos to this author for writing women well. Raisa is my favourite character still, and I think just because she's so well written and she has so much complexity to her, I can really admire her character. And Leo's development, it just continues. He just keeps on developing, and I really like to see it. And I would also want to say that we finally get to see why it's called Child 44 and why the title of this book is Child 44, although I kind of was able to predict it because of the way the plot is going. The plot is very clear now. We've got a clear direction, a clear trajectory. Can't wait to see how it's all going to unfold at the end. I've got my suspicions of things, but I can't predict everything, and I'm happy enough to just follow this story and see where it takes me. Hello, so I'm here to just quickly wrap this up because I finished reading Child 44 just now, and as due with a thriller, there's really not much I can tell you about the end because that's where everything goes down. So by the point that we got to this last quarter of the book, I was able to tell the direction that the book was going into. It had less significant clues. I wouldn't say it's predictable because for the first half or good 3/4 of the book, I could not predict whatsoever what was going to happen and what it was going to accumulate towards. By the last quarter, I knew everything, which just made it all the more suspenseful because I could see where everything was headed, and I just needed to know what the characters would do when they got there, what would happen when it all went down, and I was not disappointed. I quite liked the climactic moment of this story. The ending was very, very satisfying. I really enjoyed this book. Yana, I need to take you up on more of your thriller recommendations because I struggle with thrillers, but you've obviously been able to find a really good one, and probably more really good ones that I just need to try. So we'll definitely be taking you up on more thriller recommendations, and I do want to continue the series. Yana told me when I was at her house that the sequels are not as good as the first one, but I still at least want to try the second book, so I'm looking forward to reading that. I'll probably listen to that on audiobook as well because I can see that Script has it. If I had to rate this book, well, I do need to rate this book, but I would rate this book 4 out of 5. It didn't quite make the 5 stars of like best book, favorite book, new favorite, but it did It was so enjoyable. I was really happy reading this. Thank you for the recommendation, Yana, and yeah, that's that.
I'm happy you liked it. I'm surprised you liked it.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a good book. When I was reading, I was like, I wish I could just tell Yana that I like it so that she wouldn't be worried about me not liking it. But
I feel like it goes vice versa as well.
I still have to see if you liked it, but I hope you did.
I imagine it just says, this sucked.
Then I'll cry.
Firstly, one of the things that surprised me was the fact that this book was written in first person.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I never notice if it's first or third person.
Definitely noticed.
And that's mainly because most of the books that I've read, they're kind of in a similar genre. They're like any romance types books. I've always read them in third person. So it was interesting that this one's written in first person, and it's not something that I expected. I also thought it was interesting that in the first, I think, 10 to 20 pages, there's a lot of emphasis on the word real, like the characters wanting something real or not believing that something is real. And yeah, I just found that interesting since, the name of the book is For Real. Also, I find it really cute that at least in the version of the book that I'm reading, anytime that there's like a time break but it's not like a different chapter, there is a cupcake, and I think that's adorable.
I've never noticed this.
Wow! Where did you never notice the cupcakes? How does one
never
not
notice the cupcakes. I just see the chapter break, I'm like, okay, move on to the next part where there's a word.
There was also a moment when Toby, so one of the main characters, decided to describe the taste of avocados. Yeah. And as a person who kind of likes avocados, that felt so offensive to avocados.
Like, I think he compares something like sexual to avocados in a really bad way.
Oh, I think I know. Or if I don't, this is a perfect excuse to reread the book again.
There you go.
Another thing that is more about the writing style of the book that I found kind of interesting is the fact that the author switches between the two characters, kind of doing it from the first person view of each of the two characters. So I found that very interesting, and I'm also looking forward to seeing if this will be the case for any other characters. So far, we haven't really met any characters aside from the main two, or at least not like properly introduced to. So that's interesting. If some more characters are going to join, I feel like everything with the relationship between the two main characters has moved so quickly. So yeah, I'm kind of curious what's going to happen in the rest of the book and where it's heading, because I personally, I can't say that I can predict where this is going to go. And I've also found myself kind of sympathizing or feeling or relating or preferring one of the two main characters. So I'm also curious if, my opinion is going to change along the way.
Like, your analysis is really good.
Oh. Mr. Gordon would be proud.
Exactly.
So far, I'm halfway through the book. I'm actually really enjoying it. I don't think it's a real page turner in terms of I'm just trying to read further to understand what's going to happen next and what more is going to go on. But it's also not like I'm bored by what's happening. It's more of enjoy what is going on, and I just I get in the zone while reading it, and I end up reading a lot, but not because there's suspense events going on, but just because it's so kind of call it calm, which is ironic given the fact of what's going on in the book, but it's kind of in that sphere of it's just very enjoyable to read. I also think that so far that there are not too many useless descriptions. Everything that I'm reading is kind of relevant and more to the point, which I enjoy. Usually struggle reading through the descriptions of scenery. To me, my brain's not visual enough to be able to interpret what that actually looks like. So I like the fact that this book does not contain too much of it. Obviously, they have an age gap. That's kind of the point of the book. So far, I don't really feel like I noticed the age gap too much, aside from Laurie mentioning it sometimes. Based on the way the book's written, you don't really feel the age gap, and at the same time, like, there is a difference between the two of them, like in the way they approach things or think about things, but I feel like it is more regarding their personality rather than the actual age gap. Since I have the physical copy of the book, cover is quite out there, which means that reading it around people raises some questions. So I haven't been reading it around people, so I usually read it in my room. But I don't really spend that much time in my room, so I wasn't really making too much progress. So I decided to tackle that with the problem by getting another cover for the book. So totally not suspicious. I have gotten questions on what the hell am I reading, but they think it's suspicious, but yeah. They haven't seen the cover, but at least now I'm comfortable reading it around others and downstairs and everything like that. So, yeah.
I love this. Did Atava ask you what you were reading?
Oh, I thought it was so the cover. That was fine. I showed it to him. It was more like my parents.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I would just now sit downstairs with this book, just like, yep. Before that, I would just only read it when they're not home. But then, I don't know why, they kept on coming early the days when I was reading it.
You're just
and
like...
And then, like, I would still leave it on the table, but put something over it so you can't actually, like, fully see it. And I was like, I need a different solution, because this is taking forever.
Yeah, that is fair. I love that you covered it. When I first read it, I was reading on my Kindle, so that was, like, not an issue.
Exactly.
And they are going to be redesigning the covers, so maybe it'll be something less obvious just from the cover.
Yeah.
In this book, there's so much stuff.
What stuff, Yana?
Sex!
Going on between the two characters, and it started like right from the very start of the book, and yeah, there's been a lot of it. I think almost every single chapter contains some amount of sexual intercourse or anything like that, sexual activity, and I think due to that I've grown quite immune to it. Like, I think in other books, in other romance books, when I'm reading them, it's always like you're reading the actual story, and then you happen to get to the racier parts, and then it kind of startles you a little bit, or it's just like looking around that there are no people. But I think with this book, there's just so much of it, and there's been so much of it from the start that when it happens, I'm like, yeah, this was bound to happen, and you just carry on reading it like it's just a book.
That's fair. I think that's very fair. I think if you compare it to, like, Get a Life, Chloe Brown as the example.
That's what I was thinking about in that moment.
Yeah, like, it's definitely less of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's their normal relationship, and then it makes all the, like, actual conversations that they have emotionally more relevant. Like, they stand out because they don't do a lot of talking. I feel like it's just two different kinds of romance where, like, for Get a Life, Chloe Brown, they make a really good friendship and then they make a relationship.
Yeah.
But for them, they just started with, like, a sexual relationship, and then it's like, how can we make it an emotional relationship as well? Like,
because at the start you read all that they are doing, you're like, oh jeez. And then by some point you're like, interesting. Oh, that's what you're doing. You've done that before. Okay. Now you're doing this. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't even know what you mean by now you're doing this.
Now you're doing this.
I think in this quarter of the book, a lot more has happened than in the previous regarding Toby and Laurie's age difference. And as I think I said before, I don't really notice that difference, at least in the book, because I can't, like, see them. So based on their personalities, I can actually sense an age difference.
You don't imagine when you read either. Maybe that's why we don't mind the age gap as much.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if we saw it in person, we would feel a bit more weird about it.
He keeps on calling Toby his ridiculous boy, and I think it's just really adorable. Laurie and Toby have an argument, and at least in my thinking, I don't feel like I agree with Toby on that. I don't necessarily agree with both of the characters in that point of the book. I have been able to identify most with Laurie just in the way that he is and everything like that. And I feel like I just prefer him as a character, maybe also as a person, kind of expecting what Laurie would say, and then because Laurie just, like, because in that way I feel like Laurie and I are very different, Laurie actually comes up with like a more submissive comment, and I find it funny every single time that he doesn't say what I thought he was going to say.
I have finished the book, and it was nice to see that in this last part of the book they actually discussed more the event that happened with Toby. They took a break from it, so they discussed it at somewhere along in the third quarter of the book, and then they took like a pause. And then they discussed it more in the last half of the book. So it was interesting to see how Toby was handling this event, what Laurie was doing for him. And I thought it was very cute. Yeah, it felt like both of them were kind of like in rhythm. They kind of understood each other. An argument where I kind of feel like the argument was caused, or the argument was built on what their personalities are, which you could have seen throughout the book. Overall, I thought I really enjoyed reading the book. I do definitely feel that all the spicier scenes at some point, because they had happened from the start, I got so used to them that it was just like a normal thing reading through them. At some point, I didn't care where I was reading it, if somebody would notice, just because it became such a normal part of this book. I definitely enjoyed the relationship between the two of them, and at least personally, I think they have a lot of growing to do together, but it seems like they connect in a really like fundamental way that so far has been able to get along really well and kind of connect. And yeah, it's been a very comforting book in a way. Like, I don't feel like it's took me on like an emotional roller coaster, but it was still very interesting to read and I enjoyed it a lot. Or like when something bad would happen, I'd be like, get over it.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
I want to see how you're going to get over it. Yeah, it's really nice.
I think it's fairly predictable, but I just like it a lot.
It's just like, it's so weird. It's like the whole thing, it's weird to call it comforting, but it's kind of comforting in a way.
Yeah.
You're just there like, oh.
That's why I reread it so much, because if like lots of stuff is happening in life and I still want to read something, but I want to just have something that's happy and nice, then I read this book.
That's true. That's true. I get it. Usually, like, even with the, because I think usually all the other romance books are like, oh, this, and then you're gonna feel like this, and then that will make you feel like this. But then with this book, it's just like, things happen, but you're like, it's okay. It's okay, we're good.
Did you rate the book? Why did you rate the book?
But I would rate it a 4 because I just so deeply disagree with what the characters think sometimes. Like, the fact that, like, Laurie keeps on thinking everything is his fault, and I'm like,
I feel like you could come in and parent Laurie.
Yeah. I feel like Toby doesn't need a parent, Laurie needs a parent.
Thank you for watching. I'm happy you got to meet Yana. Comment down below, what is a book your best friend recommended you that you read and enjoyed? Or a book that you would recommend to your best friend if your best friend is not a reader. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior. Have you never heard that before?
No.
That's my outro. Don't look there. It's very tempting to look there, but if you're looking
Why do you keep it on then?
so that
When you show the book, you know where it is.
I can check it's in focus and stuff like that.
Wait, book dance. And then you do it the other way.
This is the thing that ends up in the outtakes.
Was it recording now?
Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, your shrimp has been like swimming around. It's been really distracting.
Really?
Yeah. Do you see him?
Oh, do you see the fish on the leaf? It's trying to eat the snail. It's not
Oh
gonna
my
eat
gosh,
the
yeah, I
snail,
see
but
it
it's
in the
like
corner.
vacuuming the snail. Oh, look at that dude go.
Actually, the shrimp doesn't look that bad from this distance. I think if I was closer.
If you look at their tails are really pretty. Some of them. There's this one whose tail is pretty. I don't know about the rest. I don't stare at them enough.
I do like oranges though. So. Introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Yana. I enjoy reading, but I don't read that much. And most of my recommendations actually come from Olivia.
Yay!